Welcome to the Two Stewards Show. One sure way to prevent theft is the complete abandonment and abolishment of private property rights. You see, thieves are known for taking things that do not belong to them. Not surprisingly, a study conducted by none other than the Department of Theft found that in areas where theft is high, we see a strong correlation or possibly even a causation with a rabid sense of individual ownership. The study found that the private ownership of lands, buildings, and possessions was found to unjustly allure and mercilessly entice the poor thieves out of hiding and into action. Thieves would subsequently get fined or incarcerated for taking what belonged to someone else. If you're merely a surface-level analyst or a casual observer and have not read the entire study, then the taking of other people's things appears to be the problem. But this is a misleading conclusion that often construes thieves out to be the bad guys. Thankfully, the experts at the Department of Theft have provided a much deeper analysis for us. By analyzing countless thefts both inside and outside of their department, they've found that the real root of the problem lies less in the taking, but more in the belonging. If the thefted things do not belong to thieves, it's called theft. But if the thefted things don't belong to anyone or belong to everyone, it's called being resourceful. After the study had been completed, the Department of Theft put forward a proposal to change its name to the Department of Collective Ownership. This time we talk Bolsheviks, land claims, private property rights, and more. To get in touch with the show, visit twostewards.ca. Remember, this show is not financial advice, but is valuable for listening amusement purposes. And now, prosperity through private property.
Brent.
Private property is the backbone of morality, family, and society itself. Would you agree?
Not entirely.
Okay. All right. We're off to a contentious start. Get off my lawn, Mark. Get off my podcast. It's pretty much your podcast at this point.
No.
I'm just here for the intros and the laughter.
This is a communal podcast.
That's the common theme I'm hearing from all of our listener feedback is I'm here for the intros and the laughter.
Those intros, though, are bangers.
Oh, man. No pressure.
Yeah.
Without
so I don't agree
property.
that private property is the backbone of morality.
Okay.
But the other stuff, yes.
It is the backbone of family and society itself. Would you argue with that?
I would not argue with that. I would argue for it.
Um,
what has prompted this, obviously, is the all the land claims that are happening.
Outrageous land claims.
in BC. I mean, that depends what side of the fence you're on or what side of the, I don't know.
Good fences.
What side you're on. Yeah, good fences, good neighbors. No, but I mean, since we've last talked, there have been more and more land claims coming out of the woodwork, right? We got Alaskan natives saying, hey.
Woodwork is not a joke, is it? Coming out of
that
the
was
woods?
not a pun. Yeah, out of the woods, I guess.
Coming out of the forest?
Yeah. No, but they're not even in the forest.
Oh, come
right?
on.
Anyways, Alaskan natives saying, hey, we want to say in what happens with BC mineral rights.
So are they coming out because they see other people getting successful land claims?
Well, yeah. I mean, the Cowichan tribe.
They got something, I want something.
They got it. Well, I mean, what would you do, right? Yeah. This is how everything always happens. Like, somebody does something successful, everybody wants to copy it.
This is the constant battle of a Christian. It's just the moral, do you have self-discipline? They got that. I envy what they have. It's just this constant, I want what they have. Yeah. That looks better. Grass is green over there. Well, I can't be content with what I have, Mark. I need what they have.
Exactly. I mean, no, this is the gold rush, I think, of the 21st century. Yeah. Indigenous land claims. And not sustainable. Most of it is driven by not a desire to have the land and to take care of the land and to live in a traditional way on the land, but simply to get paid, right? Yeah. I got to get paid. So, and the problem with that is there's already claims to that land, right? And for the most part, right? There's private property on this land that has been granted by the Crown. And now we have a conflict between the government saying, actually, there's two claims to this land. There's both the fee simple, like the sort of the Western idea of private property. And then there's also the First Nations peoples also have property to this land. And how are we going to resolve that? So, which is clearly an untenable situation. You can't have a serious country that operates like this. And some people will say, well, too bad, it belongs to them. We got to give it back, to quote the great Midnight Oil. I don't know. You wouldn't even know that song. That's an Australian band. What is it? Beds Are Burning. I mean, I love the song. When you actually listen to the lyrics, you're like, I don't know, man. But anyways, great land claim
It's
song.
not quoting scripture in that song.
No, definitely not.
Well, that sparked this idea, like what is the importance of private property, right? And what happens when property is ignored or violated on a societal scale? What happens in history? We want to go through today some of examples of what actually happened in history.
Yeah.
When we can point to, hey, they abandoned the concept of private property, and this is the consequence of that. And go into more detail on what does the Bible teach around private property.
Yeah, I mean, so one thing is the practical implications, but as Christians, we have to be like, okay, what actually did God want with this? Or like, what does he want in our lives? What does he want in every area of our lives? And like, how does this apply to stewardship? Because this is what we talk about is stewardship, right?
Look at that, you being on topic here. Look at that. It's a whole new mark. We're not even in 2026 yet. But did you hear it say one BC leader, Dallas Brody, is talking about this?
Yeah.
I don't know. We don't have the video, but she stands up and is like, hey, I got a list of all these people, all these MLAs who have owned property.
Yeah.
And I'm going to publish this list, unless you guys hand over your property. So who's going to be the first one who hands over title to their property to a local indigenous tribe?
Yeah. If you truly believe in this cause, then you first.
Who will be the change they want to see in this world?
And I'm guessing there was a big line of people.
Raucous.
Yeah. Oh, okay. No, nobody volunteered to give up their property.
Oh, I'm so jaded with politics. And you hear the guys stand up and go like, oh. It's like, oh man, like it's a joke and it's also serious at the same time. And it's serious. Like, why don't you just try and come up with a solution here? But yeah, there's a whole new organization called the Gambies.
So we had
give away my backyard. Yeah.
Gambies. Give away my backyard.
Not in my backyard. No, we're just giving it away.
Oh man, I love it. That's good. That's good.
No one's a part of that organization yet, but we're kicking it off.
So, and the reason we're concerned about property rights is because they're coming into conflict with First Nations land claims, and so when you simply say, you know what, these property rights that we have granted and that we have built this country, Canada, on, we're going to just disregard these claims, right? We're just going to say no.
So that is essentially undermining people's faith in the whole private property system. Yeah. Right. And it's pretty serious because if you take away private property, or like that would be a blatant thing. Just go in and say, look, no more private property. Like that's not going to happen in Canada for at least 2 years or 3 or whatever, a long time, but maybe longer than that.
Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. But even just to subtly suggest or undermine that principle is a big deal, right? It's like when we were in the truckers protest a couple years ago and they say, well, we're not going to freeze everyone's bank accounts. We're just going to freeze a couple people's bank accounts. Like, wait a minute. Whoa.
Yeah, huge pivotal change.
That's a change, yeah. And it's not necessarily everybody's affected immediately and, the whole world's upside down. It's like, no, this is a new reality we live in. Like this happens and the government can do it and they can do it whenever they want under certain crisis moments.
Yeah.
For certain reasons that are, so.
Yeah, so it's that you're right. Like it is not just the fact that private land claims are in jeopardy, and everybody thought initially with the Cowichan claims that, well, okay, that's just this area. We've seen now it's going to.
I'm in Ontario. I'm not in BC.
It's going to encompass all of Canada, right? And so the idea that the government can arbitrarily dismiss private property rights, that is the very, very concerning thing. I mean, you can. again, it just shows you we're not a serious country. And we want to talk about, making deals with other countries and bringing foreign investment in. Nobody's going to want to invest in Canada with this uncertainty. Yeah. Like, okay, I'll buy a piece of land, but I could lose it tomorrow. Like, yeah, clearly I'll find somewhere else to invest my money.
Yeah.
Like, ridiculous. So
someone who respects private ownership.
Yeah. So without the respecting of private property rights, our society will collapse.
So private property is the backbone of society. There we go.
100%. But it's defined by morality. It doesn't define morality, I would argue.
Okay, so why don't we start with that? What is so there maybe there's two different ways to look at this. One is, what is God's truth, right? So as Christians, we start there. What is the scriptural revelation about private property, and how can we think about that as Christians? And then what is maybe an economic angle to look at this, because that's a very important economic concept that's fundamental to human interaction. Even secular economists realize that, right? And while they might say, well, okay, this can be derived from whatever first principles, it's a foundational truth.
Natural law
revealed by God.
Enlightenment, that was a popular thing, right? So not like the law of God, but just natural law, which is like, it exists because,
like gravity.
Yeah. But I mean, like when you talk about, God's truth and then the economic
who made gravity
angle. Dude, we've been talking about gravity a lot at the dinner table lately. And
is that because someone spills their milk every time?
No, but talking about black
the whole crack in the table where you spill the milk and the milk saying, see, gravity is working and it's going on the floor. Now go and wipe all of this up. We don't cry over spilled milk, but man, do we get frustrated?
Oh yeah, 100%. Anyways, we'll keep our planetary musings for another time. No, but the two are intertwined, right? God's truth, economic reality, and surprise, surprise, when you
align yourself to them.
Yeah, align yourself to God's truth, then the other stuff falls into place. And that's a bit of a bold claim to make, but I think we can back it up. So we go back to the beginning, right? The rule is, as the title of our show might suggest, stewardship. Right. And this is not the be all and the end all of the Christian life, but it is a big part in what we're talking about and taking care of the earth. This is the rule. Stewardship. God put Adam and Eve in the garden on earth to take care of earth. Right. Adam had a job to do, like naming all the animals, for example. Right. So that this, establishing some dominance over them. Also taking care of the garden, right? Adam and Eve had to do that. And
God didn't just create everything and let it go and whatever. It had to be cultivated, it had to be nurtured and cared for. And God continues to care for his creation.
Yep.
And we are in his image, stewarding as well, right? We're playing that kingly role.
Yeah.
Subduing the earth, taking care of it.
Yeah, and when we look at the pictures of the new heaven and the new earth...
Do they have pictures out?
Yeah, my Bible does. Just because I got the children's Bible. I'm looking at Revelation.
That's the new AI Bible. Make me a picture of the new heavens and new earth.
Oh, man. It exists. The AI stuff, I mean. No, but when we look at the written accounts of new heaven and the new earth, again, you have this idea of people living in harmony, probably not private property, because you don't need it, because it's a high trust society where you don't have to worry about Brent not pulling his weight.
Yeah.
Because he's going to pull his weight because we're free from sin. But that was the original idea with Adam and Eve.
That's the way God created things.
Yeah. Sin entered the world. And so the relationship to stewardship changed, right? God said, now by the sweat of your brow, you shall work the earth.
Yeah.
Thorns and thistles and all that stuff, right? So it's still assumed that we have to work, we have to take care of the land, we have to produce.
Yeah, we still have to be image bearers and build culture and
Yeah, but the relationship to that stewardship changed. And then we see that with the introduction of property rights as well, right? We can, the best example, I guess,
And
is
God
the
said,
Ten
"Let there be
Commandments.
property rights."
Well, he did when he said, "You shall not steal."
There you go.
I mean,
That
it
wasn't
existed
until-
before, right? The Ten Commandments all of a sudden didn't like change the relationship between people. Where like, oh, I can't kill now? Like, come on.
Yeah.
It was so great before these tablets.
Yeah.
Like, no, you couldn't kill before,
Yeah.
and you had private property before. But this, like, it codified it, right?
Yeah.
As Israel
Yeah,
was
very
coalescing
clear.
as a nation.
Yeah.
But yeah, God says, do not steal. Well,
Yeah. You shall not covet even. Right?
yeah, going
That
even
assumes
further.
that thing doesn't belong to you. It's private property owned by someone else.
How can
It's
you covet what's
personally
already
owned.
yours?
Yeah. Anything that's your neighbor's, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Prohibitions in the Old Testament against moving boundary markers, right? That was a very serious thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it
Property
still is.
lines you shall not move your neighbor's landmark.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a problem. We read like Ahab and Naboth, right? Ahab was condemned for stealing his land, for conspiring to steal his land. All kinds of examples, right? We read about property transactions in the Old Testament. You read about God himself saying to Israel, well, first to Abraham, your descendants will fill the earth. They will have property. To Israel, here's the land that I've selected for you, right? The land of Israel for the 12 tribes. That is going to be your property, and like you will have it. You
Even the whole idea of going to a promised land.
yeah.
I don't know. Maybe your future heaven and earth, we will own that land. Or
Maybe, I don't think so, but
well, even the idea of restitution, right? In
Yeah.
Exodus, where they talk about if a man steals an ox or he accidentally kills it or intentionally kills it, right?
Yeah.
He shall repay. And that it kind of has this underlying assumption that, that is something that violates that person's property.
yeah,
So it's not necessarily that the value of the ox was so, it's like a god, we had to worship this ox. No, that ox belonged to someone else, and you, whether willingly or, unintentionally, you killed this animal or stole it. You have to make payment, right? And
yeah, and that it's bad for society when you do that stuff. It's not just bad for you or for your neighbor, it's bad for society, right? You read about like Jubilee laws, for example, right? Which I think underscores the importance of people owning their own property, right?
Yeah.
So every 50 years, land had to
and
be
how critical
land
that
boundaries
was
had to be
to
reset.
society, to a family even.
Yeah. Yeah. So every 50 years, land got reset. So you could sell your land, but only for that 50-year period. So people could become impoverished, maybe through just like laziness or bad ideas or incompetence or whatever. And you could even you could even be indentured as a servant, right? But all that got reset.
Yeah.
At least every 50, there was also a 7-year jubilee, but at least 50 years, the land had to be returned to its rightful owners, to the people that God said, like, this is your land. And, it was divided up into tribes and clans and families. It was important that people have their own land and be productive with that land, and also to stop someone from owning all of the land in Israel.
Yeah.
Right?
And
Not a great idea.
Slavery indefinitely
Exactly.
through the generations.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how else can you understand the idea of enjoying the fruits of your labor if you don't have private property? Right? You ever hear that in the communist world where they went home and they enjoyed the fruits of their labor? They were moldy fruits, if there were fruits at all. There was just a few peas left over. But if it is good and fitting to eat and drink and find enjoyment in all your labors, like you have to have, the possessions and the property.
Yeah, you have to
owned
have somewhere to
privately, right?
labor and something to labor on.
Yeah,
And,
this
and
is
to
a gift
produce.
of God. Okay. So that kind of gives us a bit of a biblical context. I don't know. Is there any other example? Like in the New Testament, you said like if someone is not willing to work, let him not eat. Right?
Yeah.
This idea that, it's important for the laborer to deserve his wages, right? Like,
Yeah. So even the idea of money, right? If I work You pay me for that, and that is mine. That's my property, that money.
Yeah.
Right? That may not be a piece of land or whatever, but I can own things, and the state will enforce that ownership. You can't steal it from me.
Yeah. And then that kind of leads into this idea of Christian generosity and giving, which is also part of stewardship, right? Is having enough to give and managing that giving and generosity well. And that's very central to the Christian life is, that implies that you have ownership of, like it presupposes the ownership, right? It says, how can you give something that doesn't belong to you, right? I'm going to give your money.
Well, it presupposes a few things.
If you're sitting in church and the pew and the bag comes around, you're like, hey, do you have any money for me to put in this bag? Yeah, okay.
There's a couple things that it presupposes, right? One is private property, but then also abundance, right? You can't give to others if you don't have extra. Right? If you have enough food for you to eat for the day, well, you can't give somebody else some food because you don't have any.
Yeah.
But the idea is that there is abundance. And, this is a hallmark of
capitalist private property.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That you have specialization. And so this is what we've seen in history.
Yeah. Because if you didn't have private property, would you be motivated to work so that you can generate an excess, so that you have an abundance, so that you can give, right? If you believed you had to give, but at the end of the day, everything you did was just split equally amongst everyone else.
Yeah, that would kill your motivation pretty quickly. And we talk about how private property rights are sort of an allowance for sin, right? That like the relationship with stewardship has changed. So number one,
not that it
you got to work hard.
Sin, but God put those property rights in there.
Yeah, he's like, you're sinful, so now we have to change how we look at stewardship.
Yeah.
You're going to have your own piece of land that you take care of. It still belongs to me, still belongs to God.
Yeah.
But you, on this earth, you can have the ownership of that. And
you have to steward it. You have to manage it well.
Well, yeah.
You're accountable to me.
Exactly.
Ultimately. Yeah.
Yeah, you're stewarding that thing, and you're doing that, for you, for your family, for others.
And
but
that's
your
responsibility. That's the difference in between a Christian's mindset and viewpoint on property and an unbeliever, right? One is self-centered, like property rights are a good thing because I can, greed, at the end of the day, right? Like, and then the Christian viewpoint is this does not belong to me at all. It belongs to God, in fact, and I actually have to take care of it to a very high standard for him.
Yeah, you have the rights and the responsibilities. And, people like atheists or people would argue, not from a Christian mindset, that it's just, it works out. Once people become wealthy, then they're going to take care of others. And I'm like, I don't really believe that.
Well, a great example of that was Daniel and Nebuchadnezzar, right? So Nebuchadnezzar says, look at this great empire that I have built and all these things that bring glory to me, right? It's all mine. And he takes kind of that pride angle to his wealth, right? And the empire and the things that he's built by his might and his strength. And then, what does Daniel say? Well, God is going to put you out on the open fields like a cow. And, until you acknowledge him, that he is actually sovereign, that he actually does own all of this stuff and he gave it to you. And it's just like stewardship. It's a stewardship reminder.
Yeah.
In that story, right?
Yeah.
And eventually, he does make the confession that, this is God's, this is, his eternal dominion, and I am, just here as a king.
Yeah, I think it's like a lot of things in life. There's rights and responsibilities. So you have the right to the land, but then what is the responsibility?
Yeah.
Right? In a non-Christian mindset, the responsibility is just to do good for yourself, I guess. Make the most of it, enjoy it, and maybe you take care of others, maybe you don't. But in the Christian mindset, you have the right to that land, but you have a responsibility, A, to do the best you can with it, and then B, to fulfill your obligations, which are also to other people in society, right? To the poor, the widow, the orphan, et cetera, et cetera. So,
and those obligations don't necessarily fall on the government, they fall on individuals.
Yeah, I mean, the more the government is involved, the worse it gets, right? I mean, the government, I think we've said often, exists.
Should I start the
enforce
podcast off with that
justice.
instead next time?
No, the government exists to enforce justice, and part of justice is property rights, but not much more, right? Everything else, charity, et cetera, should be private citizens.
Yeah, they're there to prevent this exploitation and the oppression of the poor, and ensure that private property rights are maintained, so that people can go about doing their Christian walk of life and being generous, producing value for other people, serving with their gifts and their talents and their resources, and growing and improving those things as image bearers of God.
Yeah, because people will say, no, they have to, like, governments have to end poverty, and they have to do this and that, like a million different things, right? And it's like, governments will never end poverty. People may end poverty, right? If you look at North American society, I would argue that poverty has greatly, greatly declined. Not inequality.
Aren't governments the definition of poverty? I was just thinking about that's brilliant. Governments are poverty. And it's just, have they ever produced anything?
No, they can't. And
they just
don't.
Consume things.
Yeah, they redistribute things.
And where do they get those things from? They're not even their things.
No,
they're
exactly.
so poor. They're just in debt all the
time. But yeah, like just in terms of reducing poverty, right? People will do that. Technology will do that, as it has in North America in the past several hundred years. Again, there's still inequality. Not everybody has the same level of wealth. But being poor in North America is very different than being poor in sub-Saharan Africa.
Yeah.
That's poverty. There's not poverty here, right? People argue, like, you have to end child poverty or end this kind of poverty.
Yeah.
It's like, so number one, the government is not going to do it because, like, they haven't.
Yeah.
They haven't done it. But just Elon Musk has talked about eliminating poverty, and I kind of scoffed at it. And I'm like, wait a minute. Maybe he's onto something, right? Through AI and robotics and stuff like that, it'll make the quality of our lives better. So there's a chance to end poverty for a lot of people in the world,
but at the end
not
of the day,
inequality.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I think it's still the individual's responsibility. I was just thinking about, Bill 60 that passed, they're talking about tenants, and there's protests going on, and Doug Ford's, okay, go find a job, But, the goal of this bill is to kind of speed up some of the LTB decisions and, like, just increase supply of rental homes. But, the argument against it from these tenants, the people who are protesting, are saying, hey, by the way, like, it's a really tough housing market out there. If you make it easier to evict people, right? Or like, what there's limited housing options already. What are we going to do, right? So these people are going to end up in homeless shelters. They're going to have services. Those are the only choice. And it's like, okay, so if they were evicted for a valid reason, right? And now they're out on the streets, like, whose responsibility is it to take care of these people?
Yeah.
Right? Is it their responsibility to care for themselves? Is it the government's responsibility to step in? Or is it the individual people in the city who see these people on the streets? Is it their responsibility to step in? Right? And I think in the context when we're talking about private property and these kind of rights and whatnot, I think we just so often just say, hey, government, you step in, you take care of these people. They're going to be homeless otherwise, you know, do your program, whatever you got to do. I don't want to see them, or, and that's why, private property is an important thing, but also points to the personal responsibility that individuals have. Individuals have to step up, right? And show charity, show generosity.
Yeah. And that's the model, I think, of how society should be and how it has functioned for thousands of years, right? Governments didn't concern themselves with poverty necessarily, right? Exploitation, things like justice, yes, but there's poor people, like, figure it out.
Like, the government should realize where the end is and say, hey, I'm here to ensure that this is a fair and just system, that no one's being exploited, and that people can look after each other. And this is a framework, there is some sort of, like, base level care, but the more we give that over to the government, the less we do ourselves.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I think we talked a little bit before the show about, like, if you have $10 that you can give to the poor, we'll say, to disadvantaged people. Well, what's going to be more efficient? You to give that directly to people, or to buy services for them, or like whatever they need, or for you to give it to a middleman who's going to collect a salary and have bureaucracy and stuff, and then for them to give that to people. Like it doesn't make sense, but that is how we operate, right? We give money to the government to provide services, and instead the government spends it on like gender just rice in Vietnam. I don't know if you've seen that one. No. Yeah, it's one of their projects, right? Is to go to lecture people in Vietnam about how to make rice farming more gender inclusive and friendly, and we're gonna.
It's pretty inclusive. It's just a lot of work, so it seems to weed out all the people who don't want to do anything.
But it's like I don't remember there ever being a social contract where we said, okay, we like universal health care, so we're going to pay some extra taxes for that. And we like, having police and firefighters and stuff, so we'll pay taxes for that. I don't remember that ever being like, but we also have to tell people in other countries how they should behave and how they should farm. Not in a way that's like, hey, we found this new technology, you got to check out. Like, no, this is morally how you should act, right? According to our moral system.
We just want to make sure that they don't come to Canada. That's the main thing, apparently.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Whoever has two tunics is to share with him who has none. Yeah, not to take their tunic and to give it to the government and to let the government, I don't know.
Yeah, you end up with half a tunic, right? Yeah. 4 people with a quarter of a tunic each. Or 3 people and one guy keeps a quarter of the tunic.
Yeah, I think the government would just siphon off the tunics.
Anyways, let's go back to some. I think we're looking at sort of a historical analysis.
Yeah,
right?
So we've kind of laid out a bit of a framework for the Christian viewpoint on this, and now maybe why don't we pivot into some of the, well, we could look at the Austrian viewpoint, like from an economic lens. What this actually, like, all the Austrian economists. This is what they talk about. So if you're not familiar with this school, we kind of talked about it a bit, but Mises, Hayek, Rothbard, Hazlitt, guys like this, Hoppe, I don't know. There's a bunch of these guys. Anyways, they say that private property is the starting point of economic coordination.
Yeah.
So if you want to so we live in a scarce world where there's limited resources, you have limited time. And we need to interact in that world of scarcity, right? So you need to make calculations, right? You need to say, what is this worth? And how much do I value it? And how can I interact with other people who are also simultaneously doing all these things, right? So it's if you don't have private property rights, then you can't control resources. You can't make decisions based on those resources, and you can't bear the consequences of those decisions, right? So you're going to live in this kind of world of guesswork as to, what is the actual price of something. Because if you have a central organization setting the price of wheat or food or whatever, because that's what they determine that it should be, then how do I know as a business that produces wheat, how much wheat to produce, if the price is kind of fixed? And you end up with all kinds of distorted consequences in the marketplace.
Yeah.
And that shows up in history.
Yeah. And I mean, even if, if you're not a Christian and you're like, well, I don't care about sort of the Christian perspective on this, like you should, because this is what our society is built on, right? Western society anyways, which has been the most successful society on earth.
You sound like Trump.
The best. Only I didn't say it. Other people have said it. We have the best society.
By virtue of their utter poverty, they have said it.
No, but it's true. This is the foundation that we have built Western society on.
Yeah.
Even if you don't share those beliefs anymore, like you got to understand where we came from, and that was Christianity, and that included the concept of private property rights. So you can look back through history. Right, we've talked about Israel. You can look at the Code of Hammurabi. The Babylonians, for example, they had private property rights enshrined as well. And then you can go to, I was thinking about agrarian revolutions, as one does. So this is sort of the transition either to a better system of farming or to a organized system of farming, or in the case of what they call the Neolithic agrarian revolution, from hunter-gatherer society, which, many societies have made this transition, but from hunter-gatherer to agrarian or farming.
And so this example in the hunter-gatherer idea is they don't necessarily have private property. Oh, they might have it, but they're not really making the full use of it.
This is kind of poignant because this is where we kind of contrast what the First Nations claims are.
Yeah.
Right? That they had ancestral communal land rights. So my tribe fished here a couple hundred years ago. This was our ancestral land. We held it communally, and therefore our band still has rights to this land, right? Whereas we have...
Boy, do I want to be the chief of that band.
You like fishing? Right? Whereas
I just know that all the benefits of the land go to the chief.
Well, which is part of the problem, right? So then we contrast that with what we call fee simple property rights, where like you pay a fee and then it's yours, pay it to the crown. But where there are individual property rights. So Brent, not Brent's band or Brent's tribe, but Brent specifically gets a piece of land.
You are on title.
Yeah, you're on title, and the government will enforce that. So that assumes that there is a government to enforce it. But when you transition again from the sort of hunter-gatherer to agrarian, well then now Brent, instead of catching enough fish and birds and whatever for the day, or maybe even for the week, now he's got a piece of land. He's going to grow wheat on it, for example, right? And he's going to figure out so this is not all stuff that I just thought of, right? We're just looking at history and what has happened. And, in terms of Neolithic, you can debate the age, right? People will say, well, that's about 12,000 years BC. As Christians and as, young earth creationists, we might say, well, that's maybe 6,000 BC. So you can argue on the dates, but we know that it happened because we have the example of Cain and Abel, right? Where Cain was a hunter-gatherer, he was a hunter, and Abel was a farmer. So you can see that transition happening already. So anyways, we go to an agrarian society where people start to have farms, and they just work on one piece of land, and they own that land. So they're incentivized to make it productive and useful and to produce a surplus, right? You're not just going to grow a few wheat plants. You're going to fill the whole thing with wheat.
So that you can benefit by selling it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, initially you're like, okay, I'm going to grow wheat. I'm going to grow maybe corn. I'm going to have some pigs over here, some chickens. I mean, we've had Mike Hutton from the Good Ground on the show. And
give him a call and say I got a claim to his land and see what happens. Had a rough year.
I don't think it'll go well for you. But the idea is that you produce a surplus, right? Eventually, like you start producing for yourself and your family, but with good technology, with good land management techniques, you produce more than you need. So now your neighbor doesn't also have to do the same thing. He can specialize in I'm just going to raise pigs. I'm just going to grow apples. I'm just going to whatever, right? And now we have better nutrition between us. We're going to live longer. We're healthier. We're more able to protect ourselves against, someone who wants to steal our land. And then we can develop trade, right? We can trade between us. We can trade with the next village. And so this is what happened, right? Settlements started to happen, right? People would kind of gather around these areas of trade.
You have basically a long-term planning mindset.
Yep.
And then you have iterative innovation.
Yep.
And that leads to prosperity and human flourishing.
Yeah.
So I just summarized everything you just said in one simple,
compact, that was a lot quicker.
High-impact statement for your listening pleasure.
Listen, I need pictures. And if I can't have pictures, I need at least a really long explanation. And then, eventually you have some kind of government. to enforce the property rights of all those people. Because without those property rights, everything falls apart.
Yeah.
All of that is gone.
And that's like feudalism, right? Where if you are a serf, you don't have property rights.
Yeah.
You're just working for the landowner. And you give them back the property rights. Boom, what happens?
Well, and so that leads us to the sort of second agrarian revolution, or the British agricultural revolution, right? Where you had a system of feudalism, and you had feudal lords, and you can go back to like the Magna Carta, the Domesday Papers, where there were sort of private property rights, but it was very concentrated in the hands of a few nobles. But that was the start. It was out of the hands of the king. The king had to make an allowance, or like he was going to be dead. Yeah. So that's a powerful way to motivate someone. Right. So the nobles were like, no, we have rights to our land. Like, not the people who live on the land. They don't have any rights, but we have the rights. But it was a start, right? It was a place to start. You start to have what are called enclosure acts. I think the first one was 1604. And that was the idea that this land that a lot of villagers kind of had in common to use, and they had to pay taxes and stuff to their feudal lord, but they all kind of shared this land for grazing or for some farming or whatever. No, we're going to take some of that, and we're going to make that a separate parcel of land, and that's going to go to Brent or to Joe or to whoever. And now that's your land. You own it, actually. You got to pay taxes. And there was corruption, no doubt, right? Where certain people got the best parts of land. But again, it was a start. And it was the idea that private property rights extended to maybe everybody instead of just a few people or just the king.
That's a brilliant brainwave.
It was. And again, it's not just me thinking of like, well, what if we had private property? Like, I'm just looking at history. So what you saw then was a revolution.
Okay, but what about democracy? This idea.
Terrible.
But that's almost like this idea that it wasn't Rome, it was Greece. Okay, Athens, fine. But it's almost like this idea that the individual people in the society have this degree of ownership. I'm just trying to think of examples where there's private property or ownership and individual responsibility, and that leads to a different change in history. Well,
again, let's go back to Christianity, the idea of individual responsibility, right? The Reformation was sort of encapsulated this, that like it wasn't maybe a new idea, but it was that I have a responsibility to read the Bible and study it for myself, not just go to a church which is clearly corrupt. And that was the driver for this. But I have the responsibility to not just listen to some priest recite the Mass in Latin and then give a homily and tell me what he thinks about this thing. I can actually read the Bible myself. And so I have the right to read the Bible myself, but now I have responsibility as well to live in a way that I can read that the Bible tells me, right? This, again, the sort of individualism, which was also led to a lot of other things that weren't beneficial to Christianity. But it was a Christian idea, essentially.
Yeah. Well, so all your examples that you've kind of given, it's just striking that a lot of them are around agricultural lands. Like, obviously, private property would apply to any kind of property, money, or whatever. But it's even the biblical examples you gave, it's agricultural lands that can be farmed and, increase in fertility, passed down to generations, that sort of thing. And when you take that away, you're left with catastrophe or disaster. And I'm thinking like more modern examples where this also plays out is in the Soviet Union, right? Where you have, oh man, you have a lot of blood and a lot of starvation, a lot of horrors. What is it? The Holodomor? How do you pronounce this?
Holodomor.
Holodomor. Yeah,
that might not be right, but sounds better.
You were just making that up, aren't you? No, that's largely it's a famine, right? But it's a man-made famine.
Yeah.
So you think about that. It's like, how do you have a man-made famine? Well, it's caused by the elimination it stems from elimination of property rights.
Yeah.
Right. So in the 1930s, 1933, killed millions of Ukrainians.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Death March kind of did that, but then the resulting famine, because there's no farmers left.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It was it was a genocide. And they understood that very well. You hit the farms, nobody has food to eat. But yeah, it always starts with the farms, right? Even, the Bolshevik Revolution. First, we get rid of private farm ownership, and then everything else.
And just the context, I got to pull up a story from the Gulag Archipelago. Everybody should read this. It's on our book list. If you go on Two Stewards Show resources, you're going to find our awesome book list, which is super outdated, but we got to add more books to this, Mark.
Yes.
Gulag Archipelago. It's very long, very intense, and it will make you cry, but it's also going to change your life. So you should read it.
Okay.
And then your life will be better, I think. So after you read the Bible, of course, but so he's kind of in that book. He's going through the Gulag camp system.
The author, right?
Yeah, the author. Yeah. He did go through the camp system himself, but he's articling like all the different stages of how someone would get arrested, how they would get transported, how they would get tried, how they would get whatever, right? And then just the whole picture of life in these camps. And it's amazing. Like, this is in the 19th century, the 20th century.
Yeah, the 1900s.
Yeah, 1900s. So, but this idea, like, how can we come to a world where, like, the state owns these things, right? And individual people don't. And he kind of shows how people were labeled, right? There's the different classes, right? So you have the kulaks. They said, like, okay, now the state would target people who own property. So like your mill or your livestock or tools or whatever, and say, okay, you're the kulaks, like, you have this label. And so people would say, okay, well, I don't want to be labeled, so I'm going to like ostracize these people, or I'm going to call them out. And so there's a story. They said this one mill owner who basically just ran this small private mill, which served local farmers, where you think that's a good thing, right? Everybody needs to eat grain and turn it into flour and have bread. But he was arrested because just simply owning that mill meant that he was a class enemy, right? Like he's not giving up that mill to the collectivist, like he's benefiting from it, right? And so he has the personal means of production, and that was considered exploitation. So it's just like this weird flip of the whole narrative where, private property can be seen as a good thing when he has the mill, he's serving local farmers, everybody's getting their bread. Like, I don't have a mill, right? I need to turn my grain into flour. Like, what am I going to do? Go build my own, right? And, he's earning profit, and that's treated as some sort of sin, right? So they're going to arrest him.
Yeah.
And they did this with countless farm owners, property owners, people who had factories or machinery or anything, right? Just like, you cannot have this. It belongs to everybody. And it's just like this weird world we live in.
Well, it's like you're taking paradise, which God created, and then you remove God from the picture and you replace God with the state. And the state is corrupt, right? The state is always corrupt because it's made of corrupt people.
Yeah.
And so then you everything gets inverted. And
and they arrested him not because, like, they arrested this guy not because he committed any crime.
Nope.
It's just because he owned something.
Yeah, he was against that system.
He's against the idea of private property.
That he didn't know about, but that just came and wow.
And so how many people starved? And so the government steps in and they create this whole framework to set production of different food supplies and different tools and whatnot, right? So you have, like, one day you have an oversupply of, hammers. why do we have so many of these, right? And then you have an undersupply of food, and it's like, well, it turns out you need more food than hammers. Like, but if you leave the market to itself and you give everyone private property rights, they're going to have the consequence to themselves of, hey, my hammer factory produced way more hammers than the market can bear. The price went down. I can't afford to run my factory. Maybe I shouldn't open another one over there, right?
Yeah.
But if the government says, hammers are $40 a piece, go make more hammers, and now you end up with these supply imbalances.
Yeah, almost like carbon emissions credits, something like that. I mean,
have you earned a bunch of those credits?
No, but I should. If I was smart like Elon Musk, I would have a car company that basically made money from emissions credits. But and the other comment about the sort of the bullshit or the communist revolution in Russia, like they had no farmers. They're like, we need food, so okay, I guess we can get all these city folks. You're now a farmer, and like they had no idea what they're doing, right? With predictable consequences.
Oh, yeah.
But listen, let's get back to the my favorite topic, and yours too now, the British agricultural revolution. So you start having private property, and what happens is there is a revolution in technology as well, because now people are like, oh, I got to make this thing successful, and I have a chance. So all kinds of technology happen, like different farming techniques, right? Like crop rotation, different technologies for like planting seeds, and like all kinds of things happened. And that land became much more fertile, produced abundance, right? There are other effects as well. But what happened is this led to the Industrial Revolution, which was like the defining moment for Western civilization, I think.
Yeah, I don't know if I can handle all this abundance and flourishing, Mark. There's so many,
you shouldn't.
So many good things.
Again, an imperfect situation, because the poor that might have relied on foraging on this communal land now didn't have communal land. So they went to the cities. Worked out well for the Industrial Revolution, because now there were a lot of people to work in factories. And again, not great conditions in the factories necessarily.
Yeah.
But it is, lost the camera there. It is what it is.
Oh,
and the cameras are what they are.
There you go.
Bear with us, folks. There we go. Anyways, there's no progress without pain, I guess, is the way of saying that. But yeah, led to the Industrial Revolution, which, was again pivotal moment for Western civilization. But all predicated on private property ownership, individual private property that the state could not take away arbitrarily, right? The state would grant you the license. You would have to pay for it. You'd pay taxes on it, etc. But that land was yours. And, you could lose it. You had responsibilities, but just led to an incredible amount of human flourishing.
Yeah. And so if you undermine that confidence that these people, who are starting industrial factories and investing huge amounts of capital and human resources and all this goes into it. If you just said to that guy who's running this factory, by the way, there's a chance that the government could confiscate this, would he take the risks, and would he push as hard as he did? And would we be where we are today? I think no. No,
100% we would not.
Okay.
Right? Like I don't know if you noticed, I'm a big proponent of Western civilization, with the...
And abundance and flourishing.
And again, not because I'm so smart and I figured all this out myself, but I just look at where does everybody want to move? To the West.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So like, why would that be? And, what countries flourish, which countries don't, right? And you could look at, I don't know if I said this already, but look at big parts of the world that don't really have good private property laws or incentives for people to have property and to own it, because there's a corrupt government, there's a corrupt local government who's just going to come in, and if you do anything good, they're going to come and take the fruits of your labor, right? So you need the government to enforce private property rights. And when that happens, there's documented examples in in countries in Africa, Benin, and other places where you see poverty be reduced, society flourish more because private property rights are introduced. Yeah. So it's foundational.
Yeah, the one example too I was thinking of. So I've read Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell, and he talks about the rice paddies in China.
Oh, don't start me on the rice paddies.
So this is also agricultural.
Okay, all right.
But what's interesting, so that's an agricultural thing, that instead of mechanization and scale,
yeah,
it's very, very high intensive management farming where you're going into a smaller piece of land and you're producing greater amounts of yield out of that tiny little piece through very, very, very careful management. It requires like immense amount of hours, right? Just making sure the whole thing's perfectly flat. Everything is all set up right. And you can't just come in and set one up and run it. It's like intergenerational. Like you pass this down and you teach them how to do it. And that's just how it works. Right. So imagine saying to these people, like, by the way, you don't own this thing and everything goes to the state.
Yeah.
You know, how many hours and how much effort are they going to put into maintaining that? Now, I don't know because in China, they do have collectivist situations. So I didn't look into the history of that, but I know under Mao, right? You had the great leap forward.
So-called.
It was an attempt to reach the promised land, I guess.
It's like when my kid says, like, hey, look how high I can jump. And they jump and you're like, wow, that's great.
Yeah.
That was a great leap forward.
Yeah. But like farmers just stop producing because all their efforts lead to no personal benefit at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And so my favorite story from that era, which like is very macabre actually, but is where the government was like, okay, we know what we're doing. And so we noticed a problem with sparrows, right? They're eating all the leftover grain and stuff. Like, this is terrible. We need to, we got to have that grain, right? All these sparrows running around in the crops. And, when you harvest, there's, grain falls down and they eat it all. So let's kill all the sparrows. So they did that. Well, they didn't realize that the sparrows were also reducing parasites in the crops, and crops started to fail. And again, people starved, like millions, right? As a result. So like, it's a very poignant example of what, like when we say there are real world consequences for ignoring private property rights and for the state to take over and think that they know best and they can do better. Like, they can't. We've seen it again and again and again. And, communism is like where people will say, well, it hasn't worked yet. Right? They didn't do it my way. If they did it my way,
if I was in charge of setting prices and quotas and everything, it would go perfectly. So, everyone would have exactly what they need in abundance. Everyone would be motivated to serve the state. Yeah. What about Zimbabwe? Did you look at that?
That worked out pretty well for them, I think, where they expropriated land. And South Africa's on the same track.
And redistributed it all. And
Zimbabwe is probably the most stark example of, you ignore private property rights at your peril. And they went from being a successful net producing country to a complete basket case reliant on handouts.
Yeah.
In the space of generation.
Nice.
So
that worked out. Yeah. Well, I'm thinking a lot of things right now, Mark.
I bet you are.
You got a lot of notes?
No, we should. I think we should start to wrap things up.
Oh man, I'm halfway through my notes.
Well, what else do you got there?
Well, I was just thinking about the culture of America and private property rights and entrepreneurship and this risk-taking, like this culture where you have this, like you have massive responsibility.
Yep.
And then that's built on these property rights, and you have capital, and then you're taking massive risks and massive action, achieving massive potential upside. And that's kind of like this picture of what America, like the American dream is, this idea you can start and you own it.
Yeah.
And if you do the work and risk it and serve other people, you'll be rewarded. And that's
the ideal, right?
Yeah.
When you step on your dream a little bit there.
Yeah. And it's the American dream. It's not the Canadian dream.
Yeah. No, but when you really look at it, America is not a pure capitalism, right? Crony capitalism is what a lot of people would call it, right? Where the state encroaches and enforces things. And so, Yeah, you're talking about books, right? The Creature from Jekyll Island is another one.
Yeah, that's on our list too.
Yeah, so about the creation of the Federal Reserve Bank and how really that was just a bunch of banks getting together to create a cartel, and that's what they did, and that's kind of how it exists. And so you see all these examples of protectionism and government intervention and stuff, and how messed up it is. And you just need to look at the debt clock to figure that one out, right? So I'm just saying we temper the American dream with the realization that it's also a very very imperfect system. Still better than communism.
That's why I think it's called a dream, Mark. So, okay, bear with me. It's not
achievable. Oh man. But yeah, I mean, hopefully I think we've gotten across the point of the foundational importance of individual property rights to Western civilization. And when you remove those, when you ignore those, you do
or
that
even
if
you undermine them.
Yeah.
If you call them into question,
You dig underneath, the whole thing will collapse on you.
Yeah, it's more than just this legal concept. It's an actual moral, economic framework or cornerstone to build upon, right?
Exactly, which is why when we, like you said, we undermine them, maybe not ignore them entirely, but undermine them in Canada with these ridiculous legal rulings. Like you're putting the country at risk.
And what I'm thinking, one other thought is real estate is, in a sense, a sitting duck for these land claims. Like, it's pretty obvious, right? If you own a piece of real estate, you have a title to it. If someone has a claim to that, well, you have to dispute that. So now you got two claims for the same piece of land. But this other technology that we've talked about, Bitcoin, where you have a digitally native claim to, I would say, a digital piece of real estate or digital property, right? So it's private property in a digital realm. That's a really interesting phenomenon, right? You have this.
Well, there's no prior claims to it.
No. But it's also very clear who has the claim to it, right?
Yeah.
When you have the key to the Bitcoin, that is your coin, and you can't have the same coin as I do, right?
There's no conflicting ownership.
So, and it's also not subject to the same kind of attack vectors that I think real estate would be.
Yeah.
So I just want to bring that up. I mean, we talk about Bitcoin all the time. We'll continue to talk about it, but put that bug in your ear.
Yeah. And interesting, you talk about real estate just like in Canada. Like real estate is a huge, huge part of our economy. And, we've talked about we need to reduce our reliance. Like that's not a good thing, but it is. It's a big part of our economy right now. So if we're going to start endangering that whole industry, like you really want to send our economy for a tailspin, like this is the way to do it. And sometimes you look at what the government's doing and you're like, how did you figure out the worst possible things to do for our country, especially the last 10 years? Like I can't believe you figured that out. So I mean, I'll argue that a lot of it has to do with communist influence going back to the 50s, the 60s, even the 20s. This is a whole other
and we'll leave that for another show.
Yeah, we'll leave that for another show. But that influence has had a lasting effect on destabilizing Canada, and that would include the idea of private property rights. So
I think in short, private property rights they preserve freedom, they promote prosperity, right? We've talked about abundance and flourishing. And it enables us as Christians to live out our calling to love and serve other people, right? We can give abundantly as we have been abundantly blessed.
Yeah.
Right?
And
we can show care because we have responsibility to care.
Yeah, 100%. And I think when we're talking about, what is the solution to the current land claim situation, I think we talked about it on a previous podcast as well, but like my opinion is that where property rights are in danger, property rights are also the solution to this problem, and that we need to extend private property rights to all of the First Nations people.
Individually,
right? We talked about their sort of communal system, and like just be honest here, like where did that get them? When European settlers came here, they were much, much more advanced societally, technologically, everything. So, if you really want to live the traditional way of life, maybe have that land, and then like you go live in your longhouse or your wigwam or whatever. Nobody wants to do that. Nobody's going to do it. So let's have private property where you can do whatever you want on that property, but everybody gets some, and you do away with that sort of communal way of life, because we've co-opted that into sort of a semi-Western thing where it's communal,
middle ground
but
that doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
Breeds
People
poverty,
are in poverty.
breeds abuse.
Exactly. It's a terrible, terrible way of life. So let's extend private
I'm going to quote you on
rights.
that, and I'm going to go down to City Hall and say, hey, everyone can do what they want on their land.
Because Mark said so.
Yeah.
I tried that before. It didn't work.
Yeah. So don't listen to us, folks.
Yeah. I mean, listen to us, but don't listen to us.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, I think that's a pretty good way to wrap it up. Don't listen to us. So, but until the next time,
steward your wealth wisely. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Two Stewards Show. If you like my voice better, click subscribe.
If you like my voice better, click share.
If you like both, give us a 5-star rating.
To learn more about the show, head on over to twostewards.ca and explore our free resources. To interact with the show, feel free to reach out at hello@twostewards.ca.
We will see you in the next episode. In the meantime, steward your wealth wisely.
Nailed it.